Open up the Des Moines Waterworks Board of Trustees meeting, November 28th. Now we have a consent agenda before us. And is there anything on that, Ted, that you wanted to pull or make?
There are,
comment
so I
about?
just want to make note of two items on the list of CEO approved expenditures greater than 40,000. We usually don't have any. But this month we have two. One of them was related to repair of some railroad tracks that were damaged at Southeast 18th. On Southeast 18th Street on a water main that we had to pay to restore railroad tracks. That was a $66,000 bill. And then the other item is actually payment for our lead service line replacement pilot project, the first payment on that, which is a very positive thing. That wasn't budgeted per se though, so it's just called out there as a CEO approved expenditure, but the board is well aware that we're working on that pilot. And we paid $66,000 for the first several of those. So call that out to the board's attention.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second, any
Second.
discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The next meeting, I'll just call your attention to that date because things start to get busy in December 19th. So please check your calendars. We have a number of public hearings that'll be taking place at that board meeting. Next item up, public comment period. And we'll also be discussing regional governance. I see we do have some folks online. If you are interested, just raise your hand and we would be happy to hear from you. Anyone here in the audience?
Sue, while we're waiting, I might just comment on a couple of things related
Sure.
to regional governance. Since our last meeting, all of the remaining communities we're still considering passing their resolution of participation have passed that resolution. So we have a full contingent there. Everyone remaining other than Altoona and Bondurant has passed the resolution. The city of Des Moines also passed a resolution in support of Des Moines Waterworks participating in Central Iowa Waterworks. And the execution draft of the 2080 has been distributed. So final agreement is out and available for everyone's consideration.
Terrific. And that is available where on the website?
On the landing page of the website, there's a current news, or there's a series of current events, and one of them relates to regional governance. And if you click on that, it will take you to kind of a historical outline of everything that has happened, and all the documents are there, and the agreement can be found there.
I just want to make sure everyone can read up if they missed the last 6 years. Meetings, so. Good.
All right, so Ted, what happens next?
Well, today, our board will be considering the well, it's quite a mouthful of the title, but we'll be considering a resolution to conditionally authorize inclusion of Des Moines Waterworks and Central Iowa Waterworks and setting a public hearing. So basically what we will be doing today as Des Moines Waterworks is we will be approving the form of the agreement that has recently been issued, and actually today was updated ever so slightly. So we will be approving the form of that agreement. We'll be setting a public hearing for the date of the December board meeting, which is the 19th of December. The public hearing relates to transfer of assets to the joint ownership model. And then on the 19th, the board will have that public hearing and act on authorization to sign or to execute the Central Iowa Waterworks 20. So those are the two most immediate next steps. And then Diane, I would say we're really at the beginning. We have a whole series of things that we will need to do.
All right, and that is item 3F. We'll be getting to that shortly. So item 3A, Ted, this is our proposed 2024 budget.
It is indeed, and this is the public hearing for the 2024 budget. So I'll give a really brief overview, Sue, and then after that you can open the public hearing. But our 2024 budget has been reviewed at the October Finance and Audit Committee meeting, the October board meeting, and the November Finance and Audit Committee meeting. The 2024 budget includes $60.9 million in operating expense, $69.4 million in capital improvements, based on a $91.8 million revenue projection, and then about $38 million of other funding from SRF and regional participation. The operating budget about a 4.7% increase over last year. All of that information was shared, as I said, at a couple of finance and audit committee meetings, board meeting. There's a memo in the packet.
Terrific. We'll start by I'm going to open the public hearing for any comments from the public. Do we have anyone online? Again, if so, just raise your hand.
And I can offer, Sue, that we haven't received any comments outside of the meeting here today.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing then, seeing that we have no comments. Can you tell me, does this project reflect the appropriate coordination of any existing infrastructure? And are there any other suitable facilities available to rent or share?
All of that is taken care of. This case.
Okay, and number 6 is,
Well, we can just go right to the motion to approve the budget.
okay, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the 2024 Des Moines Water Works budget.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Terrific. Moving along to 3B, the water treatment chemicals contract.
So this is kind of a good news story here on water treatment chemicals. Last year, our chemical bids were significantly higher than the year before. I think we were close to 50% increase over the prior year. So 2023 over 2024. This year, we're actually lower than we were for 2023, about 9% lower. You can see there in the memo a list of all the chemicals and the various prices. We actually have 10 out of the 17 chemicals where the price we will pay in 2024 is less than the price we paid in 2023. Most of the chemicals are selected based on price alone. There's not a lot of variation from vendor to vendor, but there are a couple that are different than that: lime and powdered activated carbon. And I did want to make a couple comments there. There are detailed memos in the packet about the analysis that we did both on powdered activated carbon and lime. The powdered activated carbon, the vendor with the lowest price per ton or per unit, also turned out to be the most cost effective after all of the analysis that we did. So that was very straightforward. Not a lot of reason for discussion there. But on the lime bids, I do want to point out we did have a new bidder this year. The new bidder had the lowest bid price per ton, but we do always every year do an analysis of those products to ensure that they have appropriate purity, that they're going to be effective in our process. And so because we had a new bidder, we did decide that we would do a full scale test of that material at both treatment plants. So we literally had semi truckloads of each of those materials brought to both of the treatment plants. We ran them through the process to test their effectiveness and our ability to use those products. We have extensive experience with different lime products, and we know that some of them can have varying purities and varying operational effectiveness. We did determine, based on that actual full-scale testing, that the lowest price product produced an amount of grit or unusable material that's left over after the process that just wasn't going to be effective at our treatment plant. We've had experience there with grit, and the type of slakers we have there, they're batch slakers that mix a lot of slurry at one time and try to discharge that into the tank, and that amount of grit can cause significant problems there. We've been through that before. We fought that before. And so we did make the determination that that lowest price product wasn't going to be effective at that plant. After we made that determination, the cost savings of the lower price product was about $14,000 on a $3.5 million book of business. And so we took a look at that, and based on that small amount of cost savings, based on the references that we have had for that new product, and based on the fact that Mississippi Lime, who is our current supplier, has made a significant investment at the local transload facility where they're storing a significant amount of product. So it's readily available for us when we need it throughout the season. Based on all those considerations, staff is recommending that We go with the Mississippi lime product again this year for our lime to provide the operational effectiveness that we need, even though it will be about $14,000 more expensive. So with that, we would recommend that the board approve all of the listed chemical contracts here in item 3B, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So we're looking for a motion to approve to award the 2024 contracts for water treatment chemicals to the above bidders in 3B of our board package.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Beth, would you mind going a little bit further on our line bid group and what they are considering doing on a long-term basis? I just think this would be interesting for the board.
Yeah, we've been using Mississippi lime for a period of time, and just recently, I don't know if it was in the last year or 2 years, they started bringing their product through the new transload facility out just off of MLK, in the vicinity of East 15. And they've also talked to us about the possibility of even building facilities there, silos where they could store significant quantities of that material on site. Right now, they're storing it in rail cars. So they're bringing numerous rail cars all up at the same time. They're staging them there, and then they just haul it from there. So it's a very short haul. It saved us some money over their previous bids. But the longer term permanent storage could potentially save us even more money. So that's something that we probably need to be in conversation about to see if there's something we could do on a longer term basis and get a better price or hold a good price for us for a longer period of time. I know the operations folks, Josh, is here specifically to hear the discussion about this item and this chemical because of some of the challenges we've had historically when we used different products. It's a big deal for the staff. It's a $3.5 million bill for the utility every year. The stability is important to us, and it's something we can likely work to create a longer term arrangement with.
Any other questions from the board on this?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I know that the last couple of years that these prices increased and now they're going down. Is it just market forces? So is there something with supply chain before? What do we attribute the?
I think all of those things. I think chemical manufacturers, like everyone else, were impacted by workforce issues. There were definite supply chain issues. Trucking was a huge issue. One of the biggest reductions here was related to powdered activated carbon. Nathan and I talked a little bit about that today, but that's one of the biggest cost decreases this year. And the board will recall that 18 months ago or so, we had a communication from our carbon provider, and they said, hey, if you want carbon in 2023, you need to tell us right now because the carbon market is drying up. A lot of it was coming from overseas. They weren't going to send it across anymore. We did some looking around to try to find other vendors who would quote us for 2023, and they just said, no, we can't get it. You're not going to get it from anybody else. We paid a significant increase for the carbon that we're receiving this year, but that market is stabilized. The product is available again, and we got better bids even from our existing provider. So it's a number of factors, but I think it's just sort of a settling out of the unsettled nature of the markets in 2022, 2023. I don't know, Nathan or Josh, if you would add anything to that.
I think that's right. The carbon is, almost $1 million just by itself. A lot of the other chemicals we're seeing 200% increase costs and stabilized. So I just think hopefully it's better now. Let's see what the future brings this year. Yeah, I would just reiterate. Yeah, I think a lot of them trucking. Talking about today, a lot more for drivers to do the deliveries. That seems to be positive condition now. And then
just on the aggregate, see that it's 0.98 million. How's that compared to last year?
It's 9% less. Somebody will have to do the math for me to tell me what 9% of.
Percentage is even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're like 8%.
We actually budgeted for chemicals to go up about 13%. And then down about 9%, so we have like a $2 million difference in terms of what we budgeted is $2 million less than. We budgeted 2 million more than this number, so we budgeted almost 10 million. So that's a good way to start the year, and the budget that we just approved is 10 million or 2 million to the good already. Once we approve this, so it's about a 9% increase.
So we have a motion and a second. I don't see any other questions. All in favor, signify, yes, signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed.
Did the long form version.
That's good. That's good. Item 3C.
Yeah, we are, this is a request authorization for to execute an agreement for outsourcing our printing and inserting. This was an item that was covered in detail with the presentation at the November Planning Committee meeting. And at that meeting, we got some really good background on why we're going to do this or why we're proposing to the board that we do this. Probably first and foremost is that our new billing system provider, as we were implementing the new software, they indicated to us that we were one of the few customers that they've worked with recently that still does our own billing and inserting in-house. Really made us think, well, that's something we should probably look at again. And as a result of a key retirement in the mailroom, somebody who has done this work for a long time and has now retired, the expertise that vendors can bring to this process, the fact that there are vendors who do this for a living now, that's all they do. The challenges that we have with handling dozens of heavy paper boxes every week and the wear and tear on employees, just moving that around for utility, and then managing all of that equipment and the operation and maintenance of that, just decided that what's the right thing to do was to take a look at outsourcing that function. And so in August, the staff sent out a request for proposal. That request was sent to 7 prospective respondents. The staff team, a cross-functional team, finance, IT, and customer service reviewed the proposals that we received. They brought 3 of the companies in to do on-site interviews and demonstrations of their products. And as a result of all of that analysis, staff is recommending that we do outsource our printing and inserting, and then agreement be executed with InfoSend to do that work.
So we're looking for a motion to authorize the CEO, general manager to execute a master service agreement with InfoSend for implementation and an ongoing printing and inserting services, contingent upon negotiations of final terms and conditions acceptable to staff, subsequently reviewed by legal counsel.
So.
And a second.
Second.
Okay. The other thing that I thought was really interesting about this is the contract on the printer we have is up in December.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like all the stars are aligning on this too. We had a retiree, we had printing is up, so
It's a good time. If we're going to do it, this is a good time to do it.
the other thing that came up in our committee meeting, and I think Laura pointed out that the envelopes, they are ordering envelopes. They are making them as they go.
Right.
So the opportunity to print marketing or updated information for our customers right on the envelope. You don't have old stagnant envelopes sitting around that you have to use.
A lot of opportunities. Yeah, it was a great presentation.
It was.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, it says there's no implementation costs. Are there savings associated? How many staff do we have doing this? What's gonna happen to those people?
We had, I'm gonna call it 1 2/3 FTEs worked in the mailroom. And when Debbie Barnes retired recently, she was the one. And Rhonda Stevens, I can never remember Stevens or Stevens, sorry about that. Rhonda went full-time, so she kind of is picking up the slack, literally back there right now. We're kind of backfilling that half an FTE or 2/3 of an FTE with assistance from finance and from stores and from wherever we can get it to keep the process going. But the cost, the estimated cost of having this done outside of the utility is $135,600 per year, as you can see in the memo. And we think that that's less than it cost us to do it in-house. So we think there is gonna be a savings, but it's not indicated in the memo. Amy, do you remember?
Yeah, our internal costs are just under 200,000 to do that, so it'll be a cost savings to do the outsourcing as well as have opportunity to do, as you mentioned, things with envelopes. They also give us an opportunity, we talk a lot about how do we get customers to understand their water bill, that it's not just water that they're paying for, it's all the other services, and they have a lot more opportunity to design those statements.
And what will happen with that employee who's
Well, we still have a full-time person's worth of work there even after we outsource the printing and inserting, so she will stay. Now, the retiree, we didn't fill that position, but we've repurposed that FTE. And we're filling a new position after the first of the year. It was included in the budget.
There's also an interesting logistical thing, Diane, about if you imagine the amount of pounds that were moved when it came
Yeah.
from paper being
Yeah.
moved around in pallets and things, and not having that done here is a significant man-hour issue.
And as Amy just mentioned, a safety issue, those boxes are heavy,
Right.
there's no way to move them except manually. So that's a big positive.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Moving ahead, another one that came to planning. So we won't have to report out on planning. The rules and regulations update, Ted, 3D.
So every year, we update our rules and regulations and our schedule of charges to clarify the requirements and in some cases make new requirements and to update the fees to cover our costs. There is a memo attached or an outline of proposed changes to Des Moines Water Works rules and regulations for 2024. And then there are also the full red line set of rules and regulations, the entire document with red lines in it to show all the changes. Not a lot of really big changes this year, but a list of the more significant ones there includes making some more specific statements about materials for water service lines as it relates to DNR's 200-foot setback requirement from underground storage tanks. Specifying conditions when a public water main will be acceptable on private property. Specifying requirements related to non-testable backflow devices on boilers. Allowing service termination for failure to submit passing backflow tests. That's something new that, we haven't historically terminated service if somebody didn't have a passing backflow test, and we take a lot of steps before we ever get to that point. But as a last resort, we are including service termination there as an option. Adding inspection fees for large taps, taps that would go into private businesses, and then updating our water shortage plan. Those are some of the primary things, as I said, as you alluded to, Sue. There's a detailed presentation at the November Planning Committee. Jenny Puffer walked us through all of the changes, some amount of detail. They're included in the board packet, the full document there in a red line form. We are proposing that we're asking the board to approve these revisions, including revisions to the fees, and make all of these revisions effective on January 1, 2020.
We're looking for a motion to approve the proposed revisions to the rules and regulations with an implementation date of January 1, 2024, and direct publication of the changes as required by statute.
So
second?
Any questions?
I have one on the on the shortage plan, and this is all maybe somewhat related, but I saw it, so I'm curious. There's been media coverage and I've had people comment to me around all the water usage in the data storage facilities.
Mhm.
How do those play into times in which water shortage?
Yeah. Interesting question. Des Moines, we have no data centers who are retail customers of Des Moines Water Works. So all of the data centers are retail customers of some other agency that purchases water from us. Or, basically you can think of it from a wholesale perspective. The water shortage plan and the water shortage plan that will be in the Central Iowa Water Works agreement requires the entity to implement a water shortage initiative that meets the goals of the water shortage plan as stated. And it doesn't say specifically, hey, you have to go to your data centers and make them do this. They're going to be an interesting customer to deal with from a water shortage perspective because our water shortage plan primarily focuses on watering your grass. And it asks people to voluntarily restrict that, and then it prohibits watering the grass. And then ultimately it gets to the point where we look at wintertime averages and reducing below a certain point. And, the data centers use almost no water in the wintertime. So when they have a huge demand in summertime, how are you going to deal with that? Well, I don't know how they're going to deal with it, but the fact of the matter is it will be up to the community or the agency, the member agency in Central Iowa Water Works to reduce their overall demand to meet the needs of the water shortage plan. And it's up to them to figure out how they're going to deal with data centers.
Yeah, it's a thing where the stories get written in a way that and then you see the drought conditions and like, well, what's going on there? I think our team's on it, but
Yeah.
but I am curious.
And the data centers, there's been a lot of discussion about that, but frankly, from a regional total demand perspective, we really don't see them. Lawn watering accounts for significantly more demand on a peak day than data centers. And so at least today, until there are a lot more of them, they're not going to be a big concern for this region. But I think the focus there is good because I think there's much they can do to limit their water demand. That's
Any other questions from the board? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Next, we have item 3E, Ted.
So this is actually a service territory transfer agreement with Warren Water District. And as you all know, as the board is well aware, service territory transfer considerations were a big part of the discussion related to Central Iowa Water Works. It kind of came down to the end as one of the last remaining items for us to figure out as a region. And ultimately what the potential member agencies agreed upon or settled upon was that there was no one size fits all solution for this. And so that the best thing to do was to rely on individual service territory agreements between affected members. Instead of having something specific in the agreement, which we did not want as Des Moines Water Works, we would rely on these individual agreements between member agencies. Many of the member agencies already have interagency agreements on territory transfer, but interestingly enough, Des Moines Water Works did not have an agreement with Warren Water. And so Warren Water made that observation here recently. They do have existing agreements with Norwalk and with West Des Moines that are reasonable, proper, if you will. And so we agreed that we would model an agreement between Des Moines Water Works and Warren Water District after those agreements and get an agreement in place that would govern if and when we ever get to the point where the city of Des Moines is annexing into Warren's territory. Now, interestingly enough, Warren has been where it is for about 30 years in terms of the extent of their system. We've never had a territory transfer issue with them to date. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but we don't abut against them in very many places. there aren't a lot of customers out there, but we wanted to be prepared. Legal counsel helped us fashion this agreement. And it is very comparable to the agreements that Norwalk and West Des Moines already have with Moines Water. And so we are interested in authorization for CEO and general manager to execute this agreement with.
We're looking for a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute the customer and territory buyout agreement between Des Moines Water Works and Warren Water District.
So moved.
Second.
Any other comments? Everyone's planning for the future, I guess, as we look at regionalizations.
That's a good thing.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. Next, I feel like we need a drum roll.
Yeah.
If I might, Sue, I'm gonna take a little time in lieu of a drum roll. Because I think it's important for us to kind of walk through this before the board takes action. Discussions considering regional governance of drinking water production in the Des Moines metro area have been ongoing for some time, many years, in fact. A working group consisting of members from Des Moines Waterworks, West Des Moines Waterworks, and Urbandale Water Utility published a framework, what we call the outcomes document, within which we felt Central Iowa Waterworks could be created all the way back in November of 2021. This board approved the Central Iowa Waterworks founding resolution in December of that same year, 2021. And the first draft of the Central Iowa Waterworks 28F agreement was released in February of 2022. And there's been a lot of back and forth, a lot of iterations, a lot of negotiation. A lot of hard work has been done in the last year and a half or more. The third and final draft of that agreement was released on September 15th of this year. Our board approved a resolution of intent to participate in Central Iowa Waterworks at the October board meeting, so just a month ago. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting here, in November, all of the remaining communities passed the resolution of intent, and on November 22nd, the final execution version of the agreement was distributed, and today it was updated ever so slightly, and the board has a red line of the couple of words that were added by bond counsel as recently as today into the agreement, which will be a part of the form of the agreement that we are approving here today with this action. Now, the attached resolution authorizes the inclusion of the Board of Waterworks Trustees as the founding agency of CIWW, sets a public hearing on transfer of assets conditioned on, number one, the formal approval by all other named parties in the CIWW agreement, and number two, a public hearing on the proposed transfer of Des Moines Waterworks water supply facilities described in Exhibit A of the resolution. The board's final determination of this transfer subsequent to the public hearing. There's a bullet in here that talks about all the public outreach that we've done, the discussions we've had at every board meeting since February of 2023, our 4 public information sessions. It also points out that both the Des Moines City Council and the Polk County Board of Supervisors have passed resolutions of support for Des Moines Waterworks joining Central Iowa Waterworks. So we're here today requesting the board pass said motion authorizing inclusion of Des Moines Waterworks as a founding agency in Central Iowa.
And just to make sure this is totally clear, on the 6th bullet, there's reference to November 22nd. And that has been updated with the sheet that Amy emailed to everyone today, dated November 28th, and that is in front of you. So instead of November 22nd, that's actually 28th. Is that right, Rick?
That's correct.
Okay. So we're looking for a motion to pass the resolution conditionally authorizing the inclusion of the Board of Waterworks Trustees of the City of Des Moines as the founding agency of the Central Iowa Waterworks, and and setting a public hearing on transfer of assets.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion?
You know, I happened to talk to Urbandale Mayor Andewig today, and we were reflecting back on the long road that this has been. And we agreed that, it had been a long road, but that we had ended up in a very good spot. He is looking forward to getting it done, as I am. And I was thinking about, I don't think that the two of us necessarily ever disagreed on the need for regionalization. We did have spirited conversations at time about how to get there, and what needed to be done. But as painful as this process has been, I am pleased to talk to, folks from Ankeny and Urbandale and all throughout the region who have a very positive view that we've gotten to a good spot and that we've got a document that, well, maybe it's imperfect. It's something that's going to form this entity, and that we're going to be able to adapt as the years go by. And yes, I'm surprised it took this long, and not really surprised. It has taken a long time, but yeah, I think it was worth the years of effort to do this, to get to where we are.
I'd like to publicly thank particularly Ted and Amy and Rick. I don't think it would have happened without the three of you and the work that you did. So thank you so much as we get to this point. You were critical.
Agreed. We chased Rick into retirement.
Back out.
But well said, Diane.
And to build on Diane's comments, I want to also say that the trust that Des Moines Waterworks now has with the other suburban entities is in a whole different place than it was when these discussions started. And Ted is our CEO. You were the one that took that charge on, and there is so much trust. You have such credibility with them. And Amy, anytime there was anything that was needed, you were right there. And the financial analysis you did was just absolutely amazing. And I also want to compliment two other board members that are not here because they're on other boards, and that's Jody Smith and John McEwen. Jody Smith is with the West Des Moines Water Utility, and John McEwen is, I think, a board member for life on the Urbandale Water Board. And in the middle of the pandemic, actually at the beginning, the two of them said, we need to keep this thing going. And I think it was June, Diane, when they said, we need to meet. And we said, we're locked in our homes and we're not talking to anyone. And they said, no, we need to meet. We need to keep this going. So I do want to thank John McEwen and Jody Smith, because I think they were so helpful in saying our three utilities need to work on this together and bring something forward. So my thanks to them. So,
If I could add, Sue,
yes.
from the end of the table here, I have also think none of this could have happened without the superb leadership of this board and initiating the effort, managing the effort, shepherding it through with your peers and other boards and city councils, and could have happened without those. Thanks.
And the courage. It's courage to make this good issue.
This one feels good. Yes. Oh, and we're all done patting ourselves. on the back. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And opposed? Sure, that's just 0 opposed. Thank you very much. Moving ahead, we are going to 3G.
That is the proposed schedule for our board and committee meetings next year. It's included in the packet. Board meetings, as always, fourth Tuesday at 3:30 p.m. We'll note that the November 26th meeting is the Tuesday of the Thanksgiving week, but we did choose to leave it on that day, the week of Thanksgiving. The December meeting, as often is the case, is the third Tuesday. Move out of the Christmas week. And the committee meetings, finance and audit, will be the first Tuesday. except for January and July, which will be the second Tuesday. And the planning committee meetings are the second Tuesday, except for January and July. Which will be the third.
And I will say Andrea, who is not here, but when Ted brought the schedule forward, said if we need to change November 26th, we can change that, closer.
Mm.
People are going to be out of town. I realize that's a year off, so you may not know what your plans are. Okay, we don't need action on that, or do we? Yes.
We need a
do.
motion to adopt, yes.
Motion to adopt the 2024 schedule for the Des Moines Water Works Board of Trustee meetings and committee meetings.
So
In a second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 3H.
Sue, this is award of a construction contract, IDOT, bulk 3580 Hickman interchange and alteration there. It is a public hearing, so we'll go through that, but not number.
So we'll open our public hearing. Do we have any comments from the public, either online or here? Seeing none,
We've received none outside.
okay, I will close the public hearing then. And then I'm asking for a motion to approve the project forms of contract, plans and specifications and the estimated cost. We have a motion
So.
and a second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. And now, Ted, would you please review the bids with us?
Yes, Sue, the board authorized staff to solicit bids in September. Several bidders picked up plans. We had 5 bids received. They're listed there. The engineer's estimate for the contract was approximately $1.4 million, depending on which pipe material we were looking at. The low bid of $1.234 million was submitted by J&K Contracting. J&K has successfully completed a number of projects for Des Moines Water Works in the past. Staff has briefed the Central Iowa Water Works Technical Committee on this project, brought them up to speed on what we're going to do here, because this main that's being altered is part of the existing core network transmission system. And staff recommends that the board award the project to J&K.
So I'm looking for a motion to award the IDOT Polk 3580 Hickman Interchange Project to J&K Contracting in the amount of $1,234,567. Authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract.
So moved.
Second. Questions?
Yeah, how often do we get bids in sequential there forward?
More often than you would think. I'm confident that was not a coincidence.
They and a couple others. Once they get close to it.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Moving along to item 3I, and this is the chemical feed improvements.
Yeah, see, this is another public hearing on improvements. We'll do that.
So we'll open our public hearing. Are there any comments from the public, either online or here?
Outside.
Nothing outside, so I'm going to close the public hearing. And I'm going to seek a motion now to approve the project's form of contract, the plans and specifications and estimated cost.
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Now, Ted, if you'd like to review the bids.
Indeed, see, this is another project where the board authorized staff to solicit bids in September. Plans were taken by several prospective bidders. We did receive 3 bids as indicated there in the memo. The engineer's estimate for the full project was $1.165 million. The low bid of $1.255 million was submitted by WRH Incorporated. WRH has completed a number of projects for Des Moines Water Works in the past. Again, because this is a project that it will be part of the Central Iowa Waterworks assets, staff has briefed Central Iowa Waterworks Technical Committee on the project and let them know what the bid results were. Based on the bids, the base bid and the two alternates, staff is recommending that alternate number 1 and alternate number 2 be included in the scope of the project and that the board award the full project to WRH.
Looking for a motion to award the 2023 MWTP Chemical Feed Improvement Contract in the amount of $1,255,000 to WRH Inc. and authorize the chairperson, CEO, and general manager to execute the contract.
So moved.
In a second,
Second,
any questions?
not that I'm staring at all the numbers, but there is a zero missing in that. Just
In which place, Al?
in that
Under
board
the
action.
contract amount,
Yeah,
the $1,255,000.
I don't know if that matters, but
Always a numbers guy. aren't you?
Duly
Good.
noted.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item 3J.
So this is a request for authorization to execute agreements for professional services for UF membrane pilot skid testing for the Saylorville expansion. Now, as part of the design process for the Saylorville water treatment plant expansion, we are going to add ultrafiltration membrane capacity as part of the permitting process with Iowa DNR for adding, expanding, constructing membrane treatment. You have to do pilot testing. The pilot testing has to be approved. Results have to be approved by the DNR. So in order to complete that testing as required, staff has worked with our consultant who's doing the design of the Saylorville expansions or develop a request for proposals to conduct that pilot testing. There are a number of goals listed there. We had 4 responses to that request for proposals to do pilot testing. The proposals were evaluated based on the membrane products, the schedule, expertise, the cost, etc. Since this will become a part of a regional asset, the Central Iowa Waterworks Technical Committee has reviewed that, this project, and brought the committee up to speed what we're going to do here. And as a result of the request for proposal and the proposal, staff is actually recommending that we enter into professional service agreements with 3 of the proposers who will be testing different types of membranes to give us a kind of a variety to choose from once we get that done. So they're listed there: Wind and Water Technologies, Aqua Aerobics, and Harns RO Systems. The amount stated, we're asking for authorization to execute those agreements.
We are seeking a motion then to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute a professional services agreement with Wind and Water Technologies in the amount of $79,750, Aqua Aerobics in the amount of $63,200, and Harn RO Systems Inc. in the amount of $99,750 to conduct the UF membrane pilot testing contingent upon negotiation of terms and conditions acceptable to staff and subsequently reviewed by legal counsel.
So moved.
Second, any questions? How long will this take, the testing?
Nathan, you can
Requirement is 90.
120. Minimum of 120 days.
For DNR?
In some different temperatures of water.
And I didn't understand from what you said, are they all gonna be doing the same thing or they're gonna be doing, because those are different, all different amounts.
they're all going to be pilot testing UF membranes, but they have a little different approach, a little different equipment, and a little different price. And it is interesting that one of the companies is gonna do it for 63, and we're gonna have to pay one of them 99, but that's. We do want to get the comparison of the various membranes.
The low price was the ceramic, testing that they're doing, so I think they're trying to get us to consider something different than the brand. So they were a little bit cheaper, and the other two are testing different. They're price. Yeah.
So is part of this too, that we would all be evaluating whether or not that technology.
Determine that.
This will be interesting. I hope this comes back to a committee so we kind of can dig into it and understand what all of you obviously know, and we're just trusting you.
Glad all the engineers were here for that one.
Yeah, I know, they're all nodding. Any other?
That's time sensitive
Yeah.
component of this one. Great interest in water production in this testing that occurred first quarter, part of the second quarter. Based on some challenges that they had, so getting this part of the project, this stage, this late in the year, is a credit to production engineering, kind of putting their heads together on that. And looking at consultants. Thank you. Keeping time in mind here.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item 3K.
So this is, we're requesting permission to establish a public hearing today, and the public hearing is for a lease. It's a real estate transaction for a small corner of the property out at our tower site near Merle Hay Mall. In February of 2020, or in 2005, actually, the board executed a lease agreement with US Cellular to put up to build a building there, actually, and they were using one of the monopoles that was there, that was owned by somebody else, but we gave them to put up a building in the corner of that property. That lease agreement will expire on November 30th of 2025, and so they're thinking ahead, they're planning ahead, but they came to us and wanted us to extend that agreement. And basically, we said, no, we're not going to extend that agreement because we want to change some of the terms of the agreement. So we have negotiated a replacement agreement with them. Some terms of the new agreement have changed, will allow us to terminate the agreement with 5 years notice, requires some liability insurance provisions to protect us from risk, requires them to reimburse us for legal and administrative costs that we incur in dealing with this. That allows for an annual increase of 3% that we're going to pay. And it's a 5-year lease with 5 additional 5-year terms. So staff recommends that the board establish the date of the public hearing for that lease agreement to be executed as the date of January 2024.
So we are seeking a motion to establish the date of the public meeting to consider the replacement ground lease agreement with US Cellular at the Tenny Standpipe site as of the date of the January 2024 board meeting. We have a motion
So
and a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? L, moving ahead to 3L.
Item L is a request for permission to issue a purchase order for parts and repairs at the Des Moines River intake gate. There's the Des Moines River intake. There is a building right adjacent to the riverbank there that has large rotating screens. Those screens need major repair, but before we can do those repairs, we needed to be able to isolate the river to keep it out. And the gates that isolate the river are not functioning properly. So we have solicited proposals from contractors to make repairs to those gates that will isolate the river out of the building. We received 2 proposals, one from Baker Group, one from Waldinger. Staff is recommending that we award a purchase order to the low bidder, which is Waldinger Corporation, in the amount of $250,000. 6:38.
So we're seeking a motion to authorize staff to issue a purchase order to the Waldinger Corporation in the amount of $241,638 for providing parts and repairs to the Des Moines River intake case.
So
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Item M, 3M.
3M is requesting authorization to solicit bids for Saylorville Water Treatment Plant, West Feeder Main Phase 3. So the 2017 Long Range Plan recommended an expansion of the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant, which, as you all know, is under design. Currently, to support that additional capacity, we need to construct 2 transmission main segments. The first of those, well, actually, both of those, the board authorized a professional services agreement with Snyder and Associates in November to design those projects. This is the first of those 2, the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant West Feeder Main Phase 3 will include more than 1.5 miles of 36 and 48-inch pipeline. Preparations of plans and specifications for this project is nearly complete. The engineer's estimate for this project is $15.3 million. The project was presented to the Central Iowa Waterworks Technical Committee on November 8th, including a discussion of cost increases since the initial estimate, which was closer to $10 million. There's a little bit of an explanation there of why those costs have increased, but the technical committee was in full support ahead with the project. So we are here today requesting authorization to solicit bids for Saylorville Water Treatment Plant West Feeder Main Phase 3.
So we're seeking a motion to authorize staff to solicit for the SWTP West Feeder Main Phase 3 project and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the February 2024 board meeting and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law.
So moved.
The second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed. 3N.
Yeah, 3M, we're requesting authorization to execute a professional services agreement with Snyder and Associates to help us with 2023 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 5. Now, this contract will include 8 streets. This is water main replacement, replacing existing main that is in need of replacement. Des Moines Waterworks staff will design 5 of those 8 streets. And we are looking for a consultant to use to design the other 3 because of capacity issues that we have engineering with all of the projects that we're doing this year. Staff requested qualifications for master service agreements on a number of fronts from a number of consultants early in this year. Master service agreements for water main design were executed with HNTB and Snyder and Associates. So we have a contract kind of ready and waiting for this kind of work. Staff is recommending a professional services agreement be executed with Snyder and Associates for the 3 identified streets on contract 5. It's anticipated the fee will be about $98,300.
So we're seeking a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute a professional services agreement with Snyder and Associates in the amount of $98,300 for the 2023 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 5 Design Services.
So moved.
Any other discussion?
I just want to offer that I'm glad we have these contracts in place. It's so easy to just get somebody to help us. Thank you. See, idea to Des Waterworks.
And I think, Ted, when Andrea and I met with you, you said expect more of this in the future.
Being creative, got a lot of work to do.
We have a lot of work to do. Unfortunately, with regionalization, it's going to be to benefit Des Moines.
Yeah.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed? Item 3. Oh,
3O, we are acquiring an easement for the feeder main segment that we just authorized solicitation of bids for in item M. The design of this particular project takes this transmission line through Johnston in large part. It requires easements to be procured for almost the entire alignment. The largest of those easements is on a property owned by Johnston Golf Development LLC, located along Merle Hay Road. The owner is developing a site there. They're developing an outdoor recreation golf site called Bombers. Staff and consultants have been negotiating with the owners of the property since about August. And the owner has agreed to grant us an easement for consideration for a consideration of $270,000. Now, in agreeing to do that, they've also agreed to forego expansion of the pond that's on the site, which they were originally going to make larger than it is so that we could lay the transmission main through the spot where the pond was going to be. They've agreed to delay improvements in the area of the easement until after we get the pipe through there so that we don't have to tear out things that they just built and put them back. This has been a kind of a long process, but staff has evaluated a lot of options. For valuing the property, a lot of options for alternate routes, a lot of options. We've had a lot of discussions about this. The bottom line is that even with the $270,000 payment for this easement, this is still the lowest cost option that we have to get this transmission made from point A to point. So we're here looking for authorization for us to execute this easement agreement, including consideration of $270,000.
we're seeking a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute the easement agreement pending final legal review with Johnston Golf Development LLC in the amount of $270,000 for the acquisition of a utility easement through the Bombers subdivision. We have a motion. A second. Questions? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed. We're going now to information items. Finance and audit, anything that we haven't covered that you want to bring to
We
everyone?
didn't actually talk about the budget that much. I realized it's like, oh, I don't have to worry. And since we had this meeting, I traveled and then I got sick, and so everything's a little bit of a blur, so. But I think we got the high level budgetary numbers for this coming year. They increased a little bit of increase in FTE. I think there was highlight again on the capital funding that we're going to be having this year, which remains high relative to historic norms, but for obvious reasons. So, yeah, it's good. Yeah, we got it all. We just passed it, so
Perfect.
we're ready to go.
Same is true with planning. We had 2 items. They both come before all of you now. We've passed that. So moving ahead, Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden Board.
Ted, or I mean, do you remember, we're coming to the end of our agreement with the Botanical Garden. When does that? Is that,
Yeah,
2024, I believe, is the last.
so next fiscal year is our final? I thought about it because I went to their kind of annual holiday event is the champagne and chocolate event. That's always the last Friday, or the Friday before Thanksgiving. And it was Tom Urban's idea. It's really become a great event, and they changed their sponsorships for that this year and raised a whole bunch of money. Which was really a successful event, and it's a fun event if you ever get the chance to go. But I think the reason I bring that up is as we enter into what is this final year, I think Des Moines Waterworks and this board should feel very good about the way we've handed off our stewardship, if you will, of that entity. It's been, again, another long road, and kind of a business that maybe we shouldn't have been in the start with, but we were in that box. The truth of the matter is the Botanical Garden has proven itself to be an ongoing viable entity. They're gonna start a capital campaign to do the next phase and then of that garden. And when our agreement ends, Des Moines Waterworks can walk away proud of the way that we handled that. That the community benefited from our involvement, and the community is going to benefit from the fact that we're not involved. Ratepayers are no longer gonna be supporting that, and it comes at the right time with regionalization. So the stars have aligned, and as I said, we should all be proud of what goes on in the Botanical Garden.
Great point. Des Moines Waterworks Park Foundation, and Andrea's not here. but,
That's online. He may have some.
Yeah, I can speak about what we had a board meeting right before Thanksgiving. And we kind of talked about the wrap up of the 2023 season, which was pretty successful. There was over 30 major events there between concerts, festivals, and different events that occurred, including Ragbri. There was over 120,000 attendees at those various events. So seemed like it was a pretty successful year. We're starting to talk about some of the things for next year. 8035 is going to move to the park in 2024. The symphony will be back, and there's other things in the works. So excited about all that. The only action we really took is earlier, a couple months ago, I think there was an RFP sent out for an accountant for the Park Foundation. They received respondents, 3 different respondents. And ultimately, we selected Tarbell, which was the low bidder, and they will be doing the bookkeeping / accounting for the Park Foundation going forward. So that should help out. Other than that, there wasn't really anything else of note.
Thank you, Pat. Ted, CEO and General Manager's comments.
Just a couple of quick things from me, Sue. I would share with the board that I'll be doing a presentation for the Taxpayers Association tomorrow night at their town hall related to Central Iowa Waterworks and the status of that. So tune in if you are so inclined. I will share that our winter maintenance is underway in earnest. We've gotten into a couple of our treatment basins here already, pulled a Raccoon River pump, replaced a couple of sludge pumps, started filling all of our ASRs, which is Neil's favorite part of the winter months, filling ASRs.
Not breaking any pipes yet, though.
Not breaking any pipes yet. No, we're doing pretty good. And with the weather sounding like it's going to be in the 50s again next week. Hopefully we won't get a lot of frost this year. And then the last thing for me, if I can, Sue, move on is the safety update. I'll draw the board's attention to the update, which is in the packet. And we continue our focus on training this year, but this particular safety update is an interesting update that I would encourage you to take a look at, because this is something that we can do in the NeoGov safety training software. You can see that chart, and what that is a couple of customized safety trainings that we did, and it allowed us to do a pre and post test on each of those trainings. So you can see there was pretty significant increase in what people knew about the topic after the training as compared to before. Now, these are short trainings. They're just 15-minute kind of online training that they sit through the training, and it's a refresher you can see. And this helps us ensure that people are gaining the knowledge we need them to gain. We can be specific about the questions that we ask, and they can be specific to our facilities and our operation. And so just an example of some of the things that the safety team is trying to do to be responsive to the board's charge to improve our safety training at the utility.
So Ted, could you give us some example, or maybe someone else could have done? I mean, of these 9 questions or 7 of the training on what? Just an example of the topic for the 15-minute training.
One of the trainings was heat awareness,
Okay.
and the other was respiratory protection. So
Oh.
that was the 2 topics that you're seeing on those examples.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle, for asking that specific question. I saw him ask Dylan that specifically.
Okay. Anything else for the board? Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
It's been for very long.